Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K? Your microphone is muted right at the moment. All right, well, welcome to the...
Okay, me and technology is not...
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, guys. Coach K's coming on. How are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for bearing with me and my internet today. But how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thanks for covering for the show last week. And I'm so excited to get into today's topic of dating. Yes, because for many of you out there, I know you're like trying to find that significant other. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to date here, there. You know, maybe I'm in a relationship and I'm like, I don't know if I should be here. And so there's a terminology going out in social media right now where it says, let it be. Have you heard about that, Coach K? Well, I think Coach K's got some technology issues, so I will just let you guys know what let it be means. So let it be, as I listen to these TikToks and a variety of things, let it be actually means is sometimes when there's stuff happening, you don't get involved. You don't chase. You know, you realize that that's that. You're you. You hold up your boundaries and you let it be. I know some people may think, well, does that mean that I don't stand up for myself? Not necessarily. So we're going to talk about what this let it be actually means. But before we get back into that, I would like to talk about our charity of the month. Because, you know, every month I talk about a charity. And one great charity that I love to work and send people to, it's called actabuse.com. The month of October is actually Domestic Violence Month. And for some people, even though we're talking about these relationships, if you're in a violent or situation or relationship that harms you, and that harm could be a physical harm, you know, where, of course, you get bruises and all that. But the other harm, it can be an emotional harm, where your feelings are hurt all the time, where you're crying, where you don't know, where you're like not even caring about yourself. You feel like you can't even trust your own instincts. Some of these things may be emotional abuse. So if you're in an abusive relationship, Act Abuse has counseling. They also help people get out of relationships. They have housing. They have financial things to help people get on their feet. All right. Now I am going to talk about what is really so important today that we are on here talking about dating theory. Let it be. So if you have a question or comment out there, please feel free to let me know, and we'll get on it. So like I said, let it be is a theory out there that says that when something is happening in a relationship, you sometimes just let it be. When I think of this, I think of one of my favorite poets, which was Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou would say, you know, sometimes, well, not sometimes, always, people show you who they truly are. So if you're in a relationship and you're talking with someone, and maybe they started to get extremely upset. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this. And they, what I call, when I do couples counseling, they're feeling maybe kind of very flooded. They're maybe yelling, screaming, whatever the case may be. It's not really even healthy to go into that situation and talk and try to, sometimes it's best to let it be, let that person cool down before you try to get your point across. And sometimes that actually means it's better for you to just walk away. And you're like, what? Just walk away from yeah, when someone is really upset, and when they're really upset, let me tell you, no matter how loud you get, how, hands movement, they cannot hear you. And sometimes they cannot even hear themselves. So definitely when that happens, sometimes it's best to let it be. I'm going to check it and see if Coach K can hear us now. Hey, Coach K.
Hey, hopefully you all can hear me. Yes, I can hear you. I've been able to listen in. So thank you for bearing with me. I just moved locations, I think because it's beautiful outside, that the Wi-Fi was just wanting to go out and play. But I do love the points that you were making and that you were talking about when it comes to the dating and just kind of letting it be.
Yes. Yeah. And I was kind of talking about it, especially when you're in a communication with your significant other. And let's say the communication gets out of hand. They're like all upset. And you're trying to like state your point, but sometimes it's best to just let it be.
Yeah, sometimes it's not that's not the time to fight. And honestly, like you said earlier, it's not a point of, do I just let this person just walk all over me, versus take a step back and kind of, when people show you who they are, believe it. And if that is who this person is, then start to take that in and understand how to maneuver around or how to maneuver out the door.
Yeah, but that's hard for some people in the sense of moving around or moving out the door. One of the things, if you're in a relationship, that hopefully as you become involved in more and more different types of relationship, you may understand that you cannot change another person. When you're in a relationship, it is not your job to change the other person. You can only be you.
Right.
They have to want to change for themselves.
Absolutely. That is the key. But sometimes in dating, it seems like you want to be with someone so bad that you're willing to just keep trying to, I know what I like. I know what I want. I know how I want this person to act. So if I stay around, that doesn't work.
Right. I know it doesn't work. But I know people are saying like, well, if I just let him be, am I just like pushing my feelings aside or pretending that it doesn't matter? Your feelings do matter. And what you feel is important. If it's not the opportune time for you to discuss your feelings, one of the things I tell people is to, like I said, let that person be, but you got to get your feelings out, because if not, what happens is it eats you up in your stomach, or it causes other issues that you're carrying it and maybe going to say it to the wrong person. So one good technique is to journal it out, to write it all out. I know you're like, oh my gosh, I don't like to journal. I don't like to write. When you journal, it doesn't have to necessarily be anybody can read it.
Yeah.
You just take a pen or a pencil or a marker, grab a piece of whatever, and let your hand move. Let those feelings come out. For some people, this movement may be a writing. Others, it may be a drawing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Coach K, and what you're going to say.
To see it from the other perspective, because you can now read what you're writing. And also the emotion is not behind the writing. So when you read it back to yourself, you can try to figure out, maybe I could have said this a different way, or maybe it's me.
Right. And you're right. You get to see it, which means you get to use another senses to see. Exactly. And letting it out. For some people, if they can't journal or draw, even just going in your car or going in your room and voicing it out. Because voice journals are also very good at just letting things come out. Another good avenue in that process is also working out. Working out is another way that when you feel like, oh my gosh, I need to let this stuff out. So definitely. So those are just some things that you may want to think about. So when we get back again to this topic of, oh my gosh, let it be. What should I do in these situations? One of these things that's really hard is if you're a person similar to me in the sense of sometimes we want things perfect. We're like a perfectionist in some aspect. And so we want the conversation to go smoothly or the situation. But the person is like, no, they're fighting us every way. Sometimes it's to let it be. Yep, it's to let it be. Don't force yourself onto someone else. And this is really also important in dating. So yes, Coach K? I think she's still having some technology problem. But
I was just saying, when you were saying that, letting it be just saves a lot of sanity.
Oh, it does. It saves a lot of sanity. Yeah. And in relationships, and especially these intimate relationships, you don't want to have to chase anyone. I've sat in many sessions where a person is trying to, maybe you're having an argument, or maybe you like someone and you're calling them, and maybe you're what I used to call blowing up the phone. You're like calling them 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. You call a person once. If they're interested in you, they'll call you back. If not, let it be. Maybe that person is not for you. Sometimes we force a situation because we want it so bad. And when it's forced later on in life, or later on after a few months or a few years, it just becomes a disaster. You don't want that. I think sometimes this happens when we're not healed. When we're not healed from previous relationships. So, and this is either relationships, whether in childhood or relationship from the previous love relationship. It's really important if you're out there dating to make sure you heal before you jump into another relationship. And healing means that you truly, truly understand yourself, know your boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah, that healing aspect that you just talked about is 1000% nail on the head, because taking all of the baggage that you have gotten from growing up, that you have taken into all of, any previous relationships and picked up additional items, and then you come and you dump it on someone and expect them just to deal with it. That's not a reality.
Right. Exactly. That's not a reality at all. No. And it doesn't provide that opportunity of good conversations and good communication, which is the key.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And people may ask, well, how do you get good communication? How does that happen?
And absolutely necessary, especially if part of that problem, it's difficult.
It is difficult. Yes. Yes. Good communication can only really happen when both parties are also willing to listen. Good communication doesn't mean that just two people are talking.
And if a part of the issue, baggage, was that if you felt like you were never heard, then you're always going to possibly overtalk your partner, or you just feel like you're always being attacked. So you try to, just say everything. So that communication piece is huge.
Mm-hmm. Coach Cam, I'm glad that you mentioned that part of feeling that you haven't been heard. Because I see in working with many couples, one of the things that comes up is sometimes a person feels like they haven't been heard, whether it came from being in childhood, whether abusive or maybe being the youngest child or whatever, or in a relationship, and they haven't healed, then they enter in this new relationship and they overtalk because I got to say things because if not, you treat this new person as if they were the same ones of the people in your past.
Right.
You're not being, and what I say in that aspect is you're not really being fully present.
Right.
Which relates to this theory of let it be. When you let it be, you are truly, honestly, also learning how to be fully present in a relationship.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad that you're giving the full breakdown of what let it be means. Because the other part of letting it be, we're talking about the partner just letting things be. But we also have to look in the mirror and recognize our own faults and flaws. And when it comes to letting it may be because it's you and you do need to go back and do some self-reflection and some self-healing. Maybe you look at your partner and say, at this point, you got to let me be, maybe we have to, have some separation between us while I gather myself and get myself into a better place. Maybe we're friends. Maybe, if you do want to go through this with me as one, we can, but that self-reflection is going to be a key component in all of this as well, because sometimes it's not just that other person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you said it. It takes us looking at ourselves. However, I know there's some of you out there and you're like, you're talking all this, but really that other person won't give me the chance to let it be. They keep attacking me. They keep, coming. They keep pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. And if you're in that situation, it is important for you to create boundaries. And sometimes boundaries, a better way sometimes to create these boundaries is not necessarily when you're in an argument, but you do the prep work beforehand.
Right. I talked with a church group recently, and we talked about just that. And it was, I think one of them called it your rules of engagement. So while you're in just a tranquil state, when nothing's happening, you all write down how disagreements will be handled. How do you speak to each other? What we need to be aware of, our body language. And I told them, hey, get a dry erase marker and write it on a mirror, maybe in your bedroom, rules of engagement. And when we get into those tough places where we know our communication is going to get very tense, someone's not going to hear, the other one is not going to, say everything that they should say, but we refer back to those rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea, definitely. And learning how to respect it. And I think
Mm,
if someone knows that, hey, if I'm in an argument or if I'm in a discussion, and like for me, if I call a timeout, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to go and fool around or just go and not even think about. Timeout means that April's going to go calm herself down. It doesn't mean that I don't love my partner. That means I know that I need to calm myself down so I can show up in a better communication stage. So my partner knows what that looks like, you know.
mm-hmm.
But if in having those pre-meetings, you understand what your partner needs. So when it shows up, you're like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Because sometimes when people just say they need it, you know, they go away or they leave the room and you don't know why, you're thinking, oh, I wonder they don't care about it, the conversation, they're this. We have this dialogue that we make up stuff about what we think a person is actually doing.
Right. You walking away, you must don't want to hear me. Hmm.
Right.
Remember our rules of engagement. If I walk away, I want to make sure I don't say something that may do damage to us. So give me that time. And that really does help with the entire let it be scenario, the theory behind it. If we know on the front end, this is who this person is, when they are on 10, they need to walk out of the house and I need to let it be. I need to let them walk out because me trying to keep pulling them back in, hey, guess what? Maybe that's triggering of something in their past. Maybe that's going to result in us having a bigger blow up. Another exercise that I do at one of our retreats is the dartboard, and we use real darts. I probably won't in the future because everyone's scared of them, but we use real darts. And we blow up a little balloon and we put it in the middle of it, and you try to break that balloon. And what that is every time you throw a dart trying to get your partner to open up about something that they're not ready to open up, it's possible you're going to miss the target, which is the balloon, which is the conversation. And all of those darts, they hurt. So the more that you're trying to get that conversation out when it's not time, the more damage that you could potentially do.
I like that idea. Yes, that's a great idea. Yeah. And
Yeah,
there's
they
a
were
time.
scared.
Yes. Yeah. There's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fear of losing someone is one of the biggest repellents of the let it be theory.
Mm.
If we're in a disagreement and everything in my past has been people abandoning me, people walking away from me, people never coming back to me. And so if we get into this disagreement and you're upset, I automatically think you're going to leave if I don't fix this right now. So we do have to get to a place, honestly, for those that are in the dating world. And even honestly, as you get into relationships, of just letting it be. If you can do it while you're dating, you can make better decisions on, is this person worthy of going beyond the dating phase?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned that whole fear. Yeah, because that fear of like, oh my gosh, this person's going to leave me or I'm never going to find someone. You're right. It goes right back down to, in psychology, what we call it attachment and feeling abandoned. Yeah. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you felt abandoned, and that means, and that doesn't necessarily mean that, that physical abandonment, but even that emotional abandonment, you know, where someone in your past has not met your emotional needs, then when you're in this kind of situation, and instead of just letting it be, you like get so anxieties. Yeah, because anxiety is based out of fear. You get so anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you try to push and push. Yes. Instead of just
So
letting
just
it.
think, instead of just letting it be. So thinking about this dating theory, let it be, what are your full thoughts around it? How do you feel about it? Is this, you're no longer in the dating world. I'm no longer in the dating world. So we can just kind of look, just looking at the world today. Do you think this is a reasonable or good theory to utilize?
I do. I do. And I think not only just in the dating world, but in the relationship world. Yeah. Yes. Whether it's friendships or even a husband and wife. Sometimes we have to learn to let go and not get so intense about one thing versus letting it be for a while. And when I mean let it be, I also don't mean never to come back and discuss things, because it's important to discuss things. I don't want anyone to think I'm a believer of putting things underneath the carpet, because I don't. I think it needs to be, but there is a time and a place.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think in my marriage, I've learned definitely, and I've watched this in coaching clients. If you just sit back and let the situation play out on its own, that person who may not see their fault right then and there, but if you give them the space, time, and opportunity, they will see whatever it is. And then they will maybe come to you and say, after we had this talk, this disagreement, I realized that my role in this was X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And what I need to do differently moving forward is A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. That then opens up the other side of the conversation for you to say, well, I appreciate that you saw that, because that was my point. And here is the role that I played in it, X, Y, Z. And maybe moving forward, hearing what you just said, I should do A, B, and C. Right. That's a full-blown dialogue that was just created because you allowed the time, space, and opportunity to let it be.
Right, exactly. And that's great when they can actually come up and say, hey, we need to talk. But however, there may be couples out there where something's happened and the person doesn't come back and say anything. And if you're in that situation, I'm going to advise that when things are calm, you do what I call it a gentle startup. And it's an easy format. If the format is, you start off with a sweet name that you call your significant other, whether it's, I don't know, Honey Bae, Bookie Bae, whatever the case may be. If touch is something that they're comfortable with, sometimes even touching a person just gently, looking them in the eyes, not standing above them, standing where, your eye, or sitting where you guys can see each other, and just start from, honey, I feel. Don't use the word you. Don't come you, I feel. Mm-hmm. And then ending it with, I really do appreciate you sitting here listening to this. Yeah. And keep it short and sweet.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I love that. I'm sitting here visualizing this conversation happening between two people. And it's so soft and it's warm and inviting. And even to add to that, fact, feeling, fact. Right. Is another piece that I love, feeling, fact, feeling. Right. And what that is what you just did, the feeling that you gave, I feel. Then you talk about the facts. Right. Because if we can keep the bulk of things engulfed in the facts, then we can end with more feeling. And so we can, finish that out. But leading with feeling, like keeping feelings, is an opinion of the whole thing, and that will just make it worse. So I love that you did that whole scenario, because it is feelings, facts, feelings.
Right. And the reason why it's so important to start with the feeling is because if someone says they feel betrayed, they feel sad, they feel guilty, they feel whatever they feel, that's a different lens. Each of those feelings have a different lens for you to see what the situation is about. But if you just start talking about the situation, like, but there's no feeling, then you may miss the lens that person is coming from. Because someone from being sad, I feel sad about this, versus I feel betrayed, it's a two different aspect.
It is. It really is. And even with thinking about the theory of let it be, if everything is immersed in feelings all the time.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole nother.
It just, it's that let it be is going to let it go at some point, because that gets emotionally draining.
Yes. No, you do have to have some facts behind it. That's why it's sometimes good to journal, to understand what am I truly feeling? What actually happened? You know what I'm saying? What's the actual stuff? Yeah. That's why I was saying journaling is really a good method.
It is. So speaking of journaling, if you really think about it, because you said that some people don't really like to journal, and we get that. And I even love the voice journal that you talked about. But if you think about Facebook, it came out in the 90s at some point, and your memories come around every once in a while. Your Facebook memories show up.
Yes.
And you go back and you read and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe 5 years ago I said this. That is essentially what journaling is for you to get a full reflection of where you were at that point in time. So if we don't think of journaling as a task, oh my gosh, you got to write out my feelings, versus being able to reflect on a point in time so that you can understand, so that you can say, oh, that was my mindset. Oh, wow. Am I still there? Have I corrected this thing? Did I turn it around? Who was in my life at the time that I was in that space? Because as you talked about earlier, if it's something from your past, and say it's a sibling or a family member, and they were still in your world during that time that memory came up, but now they're out and your mindset is different, well, we know where that took a turn.
Right, definitely. And I like how you brought that, it gives just more a descriptive of what's going on at that time period. When you, like you said, when you journal and you go back and look at something. But what she did not say, people, is that don't use Facebook or Instagram as your journal. Please do not. That is
yes. Thank you.
Did not say that. Okay. It does not help to put all your business out there on this. Yeah, out on social media for everyone to see. That's not a way to get anyone's attention and make it
say it again.
Positive.
Say it again for the people in the back. One more time for the people in the back. Say it again.
Yeah, it's not to go out and put all your feelings or whatever is about the relationship out there on social media. It does not benefit your relationship at all. Yes, and don't think, oh, maybe that's how I'm going to get him to notice X, Y, or Z. If you can't say it to him in his face or her into his face, and you got to go on social media, it may not be the relationship for you. Just saying.
Right.
Yes.
Because typically you're just looking for validation of your point.
Right.
And there's always an audience that is there to give you validation without having any kind of context. Then you need to go be with them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Wow. Well, this has been a great topic. So if you're out there, the main thing is learn to let it be. And in letting it be, we also talk the importance of you being authentic to yourself. Know yourself. Know your boundaries. So we will take a break and we'll be back in a moment.
Join Vacation Counseling on the Christian Couples Retreat, September 13th through the 18th of 2024. Enter into a deeper connection with God and love and honor each other passionately in God's love. Dr. April Brown, intimacy and sex therapist and author of Improving Intimacy, and Dr. Jason Prendergast, therapist on 90 Day Fiancé, Last Resort, will lead you through Christian-based relationship and intimacy therapy, the Gottman Method, temperate therapy, group and private couples counseling, and enjoy intimate vows exchange, dancing, and boating excursions. For more information, call 239-565-6921. Book your Christian couples retreat today at vacationcounseling.com. Ignite the passion in your marriage.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Wow, that was just a great topic on let it be in the dating.
It was very good. And I appreciate you, picking up where I was not able to talk, but I was listening. And I think this was so necessary. I mean, we had a lot of people tuning in on this one, and we'd love to hear from you all for sure.
Right, definitely. If you have any feedback, please state it in the Instagram or the Facebook or YouTube, and definitely follow us on all these social media platforms. Yes. So Coach K, what's coming up?
We have some amazing shows coming up. So next week on October the 12th, we have Intimacy Through Illness and Finding Love After Loss with Richard Strother. On October 19th, we have Why Men Marry the Next Girl. And that's going to be with Dr. April and myself. And then on October the 26th, we have Godly Relationships. Really excited about that.
Okay, awesome. So we will see you guys next week. And this has been the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Take care. And don't forget to follow and like us. And also, I just want to say a quick reminder, if you're out there and you're like, oh, I don't know if this person is for me, we do have on our website free intimacy quizzes, which you can go and check it out and see how close you and your partner are. And we also, as you just saw, have a Christian retreat coming up. Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.